with that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Rodney Harris, who writes, "Greetings, John. So, Black Widow is supposed to come out in theaters in just under 3 months on May 7th. I don't mean to sound skeptical, but even with the improving conditions, more vaccines, and falling new infection rates, less than 3 months seems a little ambitious. But Disney has just said that they are fully committed to releasing Widow in theaters. Do you think they can make the May 7th window? Do you believe they won't skip theatrical and go right to streaming?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, the saga of Black Widow trying to get onto screens continues. Now, of course, the movie was moved a couple of times, and now it's sitting on May 7th. May 7th is rapidly approaching. And while, yes, actually, what's funny? Aaron, Ann, and I were looking at in California, the new infection rates, 2 weeks ago, it was the 7-day average was 42,000 new infections per 7 days. Today, it's 10,000 new infections per day, which is still 10,000 too many. But I mean, we see situations improving. We're seeing vaccines rolling out. They're saying they're going to have all these vaccines by here and then, blah, blah, blah. But still, 3 months is a short window. And I was saying, I think about 2 weeks ago, I kind of expect Black Widow to be bumped one more time. I think they've seemed very committed to not putting this thing on Disney Plus. I think they want to bump it. They will bump it one more time. That's what I think they're going to do. Now, when asked about it, and about whether or not they may look at putting this thing out into, say, Disney Plus instead, Bob Chapek, the new CEO over at Disney, he seemed fairly resolute when he said the following. This comes to us from Variety. Disney CEO Bob Chapek debunked speculation that Black Widow, the upcoming Marvel superhero adventure starring Scarlett Johansson, may debut on the Disney Plus streaming service. Black Widow is currently scheduled to open theatrically on May 7th, which would make it the first blockbuster of 2021. This is what Bob Chapek said. "We are still intending it to be a theatrical release," Chapek said Thursday during the Disney's quarterly earnings call, and he went on from there to explain a little bit more. All right, so this breaks down into a couple of questions. Question number 1 is, do I think they will forego the theatrical experience and do the Disney Plus route? No. They have said for about 6 months now, and Chapek just doubled down again, this movie's going to theaters. This is a theatrical movie. This is a movie that for us has the potential, not that it will get there, but it has the potential to be $1 billion film. I mean, probably once things are kind of normalized a little bit, it's $700 million in its sleep. So no, we're not going to pass up on that windfall. We are going to do this theatrically. So on the question of, do I think they're going to put this on Disney Plus? The answer to me, I think, is very clearly, no, they're not. Now on the question of, do I think they're going to put this thing, if they're going to actually release this on May 7th? Listen, I'm as optimistic as anybody, but May 7th, I mean, heavens, if the release date right now is June 7th, I feel way more optimistic about that, honestly. But to me, May seems just a little too soon. I think, earlier I said I thought late May might be the most optimistic. I see Disney pushing this one more time. And probably when they push it again, it'll probably be anywhere between 30 to 60 days. I don't see it being a massive 4-month jump or anything like that. So I do believe they're going to push it one more time, but it will indeed be theatrical. Aaron, you're hearing Bob Chapek. I mean, we're seeing what's happening right now. We're for the first time in a long time, we're seeing some encouraging news about the state of the pandemic. May 7th is not all that far away. We just heard Bob Chapek's statements. So 2 questions. Number 1, do you think at some point they will just forego their traditional theatrical release and go to Disney Plus? And if they do keep it theatrical, can they make that May 7th date? What do you think?
Well, I definitely agree with you. I do not believe that they're going to put it on Disney Plus. As you said, they have made it very clear that this is going to go to theaters. You are much more optimistic about the pandemic numbers than I am. I want to be optimistic, I really do. But when I look at the numbers, I don't just look at the drop from a few weeks ago, because from a few weeks ago, that was the post-holiday bump. We all knew that at Thanksgiving, there was a huge jump in numbers. And then at Christmas and New Year's, obviously, there was a massive jump in numbers. So when I look at the numbers, I don't compare where we are today to where we are 2 weeks ago. I compare where we are today to where we were right before Thanksgiving. And the numbers are really not that different. And in fact, now that we have new introduction, all these new variants coming in, the B117, and these indications that these variants are a lot more transmissible, I'm not ready to breathe easy just yet. And also in California, we have 800,000 frontline medical workers alone, just in Los Angeles County. And we haven't even finished vaccinating all of our medical workers and people over age 65. So even though, Tom and I have, a medical history that may warrant us to be, I guess, higher up on the list, we're nowhere near getting our vaccines yet. We're not even close to getting our vaccine. So I think that the idea that by May, we will reach a point where the majority of the population has had 2 inoculations and has gotten in the habit of going back to the movies. Because you have to remember, it's not just about, oh, we're vaccinated and now we're just going to go out. I think that there will be a big push for people to get out of the house again. I think people are going to be so ravenous to have some sort of social engagement. But I do think that asking people to sit in a movie theater for several hours might take a little bit more easing into than Bob Iger is. I think he's being very optimistic about people's willingness, because I think people are going to want to go to concerts and sporting events and events where
they just had 22,000 people at the Super Bowl.
Right.
But mostly vaccinated people.
Right. Yes. And they were also very, very distant, sitting far apart, and it was outdoors. So I don't know. I really think that this is going to get pushed again. I think May is very optimistic. And even if I were to get both inoculations in April, I don't necessarily know. And it's not even that I think that I would go and get sick. It's just we're so now used to being able to have it, being able to watch a movie in the comfort of our home. And while, yes, there's always going to be the wonderful film fans who want the experience of going to a cinema, a lot of people who are just not that into the movies. They like movies, but they're not you guys. They're not the people watching the John Campea show. Like the people that are watching this show, yeah, we're all going to go to the movies eventually, but there's a lot of people that have now been really spoiled into the idea of why go and, drive to the movie theater and pay for tickets and pay for popcorn when I can just pause it and go to the bathroom whenever I want.
My counter to that has been and remains is that let's look at a similar optional activity outside of the house, restaurants. You can sit at home and eat food. You can even order food in to come to your house and all that kind of stuff. But I know around where we live, the moment restaurants were allowed to open, the restaurants were at capacity. You can eat food at home. You can have it delivered. You can make it yourself. You don't have to go anywhere. But the moment the opportunity availed itself for people to go and do that, they flooded out to do it. And I agree with Steven Spielberg when he said, listen, when things are and listen,
Steven Spielberg, what does he know?
I think you're right. I mean, I do think May 7th is too optimistic. I think that is too optimistic, yeah. May 7th. But I also feel like the end is finally in sight. I feel like the light is fine. We actually tangibly see it there now. You know what I mean?
Yes, but the
and
reason
you are
why
right too. It will, once that is cleared, it will take a little bit of time for people to reacclimate and get back into that flow too. So it's not just about getting the theaters open. It's also about needing a little bit of runway time to get people back into the habit of going back again.
But in a counter to your restaurant analogy, a lot of people don't like to cook. And also there's something to be said about being served, sitting down and requesting something. And as a waitress for many, many years, I understand that. There's a reason why you tip your server is because people like to get good service. You go to a movie theater, you're not really getting service. You buy your ticket, you sit down, you unless you're going to my favorite movie theater, Alamo Drafthouse. That I will say this. you know what? I will go back to Alamo Drafthouse because that is a full experience of getting, that I can't have at home. I can go and sit at a normal movie theater. Like, I feel like I can have that experience at home. There's something about, being taken care of, going out and saying, I'm paying for this service, but I also feel like I'm getting an extra level of service that, so that's my counter to your restaurant analogy, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that Steven Spielberg is wrong. So I don't know. I will remain
He's
cautiously
not all-knowing. But I mean, again, when we
I'll
look at
remain
other
cautiously
markets,
optimistic, but I don't see May happening.
Right.
I see it being pushed.
I do too.
For sure.
Whether that's late June or July or something like that, but I agree. How long more it's got to be pushed.
Independence Day Black Widow. Let's have a July 4th Black Widow party.
There you go.
I'm into that.
So regardless of how long it needs to be pushed, I think it needs to be pushed, but I also believe they're 100% staying in their theatrical model. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Do you think there's any chance that Black Widow can actually hold that May 7th date? I don't think so. Aaron doesn't think so. Maybe you can think of some good reasons why I will. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.